Greetings, brothers and sisters. Shalom, assalamu alaikum, adnastana. Pleasure to be back with you here on Points of Light Radio and continuing our journey of light and knowledge. As you can see, we just finished our lodge meeting. I'm in the basement of our lounge of my lodge here. This was our installation of Officers' Night, and the meeting was fairly well attended. And that's what we're going to be talking about here today on Points of Light Radio. Lodge attendance, right? As we go along, you're going to see that lodge attendance is an issue with every fraternal stripe and in lodges everywhere. It is an issue, right? That need to have our lodges well attended. You know, we have to have quorum, and if our lodges aren't well attended enough, you're going to see that we can't always make quorum. So what can we do to improve lodge attendance? What are some lodges doing to have that have better attendance? Let's see what that is so we can all start doing it. So let's move forward with our discussion here, brothers and sisters, and trim your lamps. I can't wait to bring you this. There's one guest in here in particular you've never saw before, and I can't wait to introduce him to you. So let's move forward.
Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of light and secret knowledge wherever you may be, you are listening to Points of Light Radio, the podcast dedicated to taking you past the apron and behind the closed doors of lodges everywhere. And here is your host, Stan Miller.
Let's open it up with Demetrius Feaster. He's the current District Grand Master, Deputy District Grand Master, and current Noble Grand, Vice Grand, and the Grand United Order of Odd Fellows. He's been holding virtual meetings, okay, that seem to be helping to boost attendance at their in-person meetings. So, you know, I just loved interviewing this gentleman. You're going to be seeing more of him in the future here on Points of Light Radio. Let's go see how those virtual meetings are helping with in-person attendance.
But do you find that having these weekly meetings gives you better attendance at your actual in-person meetings, shall we say?
Yes, because every week we're talking about it. So we also do fellowships. So since it's in the name, we're really big on fellowshipping with our strangers and just each other. So, you know, some of us own properties or whatever. And whenever we get to the house, we come to the house and we have some beers, some food, we'll cook out, play music, and just talk and get to know each other. No business or anything, just really just sit down and talk. And then in that space and our settings, we're talking about the next. There's always the next. That's the key. What is our next initiation? When's our next fellowship? Those weekly meetings gives us the anticipation for us to be like, all right, we're going to fellowship this month at this place. We're going to meet here, blah, blah, blah. And then when we fellowship, we're talking about the initiation and we're bringing in our strangers.
Many of you will remember Klaus J. Kike. I interviewed him in the August 13, 2025 segment of Points of Light Radio about the Red Lodge, Red Craft degrees that the lodges in some of the Louisiana districts in Louisiana are practicing. And I asked him about attendance or the issues they might have been having with attendance in Louisiana. This was his response. Okay. Now, do you have the same issues in New Orleans about members, shall we say, not attending meetings as they should?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you feel it's important for, shall we say, to attend business meetings? Like a lot of people will be there for degrees and things like that. But even up here, we have issues with people being absent from business meetings.
I think, for me personally, I think yes, that is extremely important. But I don't think it's what's happening in the fraternal organization of Freemasonry. I don't think what's happening to us is anything unique I think it's evident all fraternal organizations now are having the same problem. I mean, even the churches now are having problems maintaining their memberships. And so you have to ask the question, well, what's changing? And so is society changing in such a way? I really know when I talk to my grandchildren about it, my grandsons, well, they just pick up the iPhone and they click in the iPhone and it answers any question they want to ask, as opposed to sitting down with granddad and really discussing why he became a Mason, how important it is to him, and why he'd like to see his grandsons become members. Yes.
Now here's a guy from way back on Points of Light Radio, November 2022 to be exact. Jeffrey Bronner. He was a member of the Fraternal Order of Moai. He had a leadership position there. I recently caught up with him again, and I asked him about lodge attendance or the attendance at their meetings with the Fraternal Order of Moai. Okay, so you'll be seeing more of him later this year, but this is part of a much larger interview I did with him. Let's see how the meeting attendance is with the Fraternal Order of Moai.
Exactly. Do you find your meetings are well attended?
I think it varies by chapter and their current circumstances. So, I think, I talk to chapter leaders about attendance and how that's going and some of the challenges they have.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm fortunate that I'm in a chapter where attendance has always been a priority and is pretty good. But, occasionally you're looking at that quorum number if you're trying to conduct business and you're trying to make sure you're going to hit that number, and you might make a couple of phone calls. So, we all have to, I think every organization has to, deal with that from time to time.
And how many do you have to have quorum when you talk about
that? For us, it's a simple majority. So 51% of the active members of the reef, the chapter, whatever the body is.
Yeah. Some have that requirement of 5 or 6 or whatever members have.
Yeah. I mean, if a chapter is very small, it's 5, right? For us, 5 is a significant number. So if a small chapter, basically less than 10 people, they're going to have at least 5 there. But as a chapter gets bigger, that number rises, right? So you don't want a situation where a large chapter, my chapter has over 40 people in it. You wouldn't want 5 people to be making business decisions. You want to be sure you have a real quorum of a number of people to make a decision that's legitimate and everyone else will accept.
On October 1st, I interviewed Juan Sepulveda from the Winding Stairs Masonic podcast. We discussed brothers who were turning their backs on the lodge, but during that particular interview, I did ask him, and I saved the answer for you, about lodge attendance and the reason many Masonic lodges are suffering when it comes to lodge attendance. Let's see what he had to say. Now, on the topic of people leaving their lodges, almost as bad, you've touched on this, almost as bad as turning your back is... to put it in workplace terms, it's called almost like quiet quitting, where you just stop attending, or if you do, you come in and you leave real fast. Now, what is it now? I know that some members rarely, if ever, show up, but and some people, they'll show up for a degree day and so on, but do you think it's important to attend business meetings? Do you think and maybe we should try to keep the meetings interesting, I would say. But also, I think you'll agree with me, business meetings are part of the work of that lodge, and we've got to divvy that work up properly, and it is part of learning the working of the lodge as well. Would you agree?
Yes. One of the biggest problems that I see, it's like... the snake that it's biting its own tail, right? It's the Ouroboros symbol, where you need enough members in order for you to be selective with the leadership that you establish, right? Yeah. If your lodge has a membership of 100 brothers, and the average will be 10 to 20% of those are active members that really go to lodge and participate on the whole thing. Then you have, out of 100, you have 10 people, maybe 20 people from which to choose leadership. in less than a decade, you've churned through all of them, and very likely you've reappointed some people into positions that they've already served in.
Mm-hmm.
So you take these people that are committed to the lodge, now they're overworked, overburdened, right? And that's a problem. And the reason I see it as an Ouroboros is because if you have enough of a membership that you can be selective and say, I can see leadership in this brother. Let me start helping him develop the skills or recognize the proper procedures in order for them to be an effective member of our lodge, then it's a lot better, right? Because you'll have these ebbs and flows of amazing worshipful masters, and then some who maybe are not great at the organizational management, and the lodge suffers for it, right? The individual suffers for it because it's harder than it needs to be. So this is something that can be tackled, but it has to be tackled from multiple angles. It's making sure that attrition is not higher than it needs to be, that there's a procedure for whenever someone shows interest in being a member of the lodge, that they don't fall through the cracks. How many times, someone calls, leaves a message, and the secretary doesn't get back to that person for a week, 2 weeks later, or a month later, never gets back, right? How many good men are not joining the fraternity and thereby not contributing to that membership problem? So there's not a silver bullet to it, obviously. There has to be diligence in paying attention to all the variables necessary to make sure that you have a solid lodge, or at least one that is poised for greatness.
You may recall last year I interviewed Chris Tomasello. He's the former Grand Knight of his Knights of Columbus Lodge in New Jersey, right? And he's here to talk to us about attendance at his Knights of Columbus meetings. Yeah. Now, do you have any, when it comes to, you talked about attendance, do you have any issues with attendance at your meetings?
With my council, no, we have our usual 20-25 guys, and our schedule is kind of based on where we have a couple events through the course of the year. We just had our spaghetti dinner this past Saturday.
Okay.
And we had a good turnout, people of members and guests. We have a golf outing coming up later this month. Mm-hmm. Then we have our Christmas tree sale. We have cookies with Santa. Then we have a chili cook-off. We have a couple programs staggered throughout the course of the year. And in addition to the members who come to every meeting, they come out to different programs. We generally average. We're never hurting for staff for events. I'll put it.
You don't have any trouble making quorum, in other words.
No.
Okay.
No, we have a very good officer chain. My council is kind of like in a privileged position, I'll say, because we have the three generations. We have the old guard who are around, who are very strong in their Catholic roots, who go to mass every Sunday. Not that I'm saying it's a bad thing. Then we have, like, I guess you say Gen Xers, who are kind of in the middle, who are the middle ground teaching the younger guys. And then we have the younger guys who are coming up to the officer chain to replace those two other generations. Good. While also keeping them in as elders and advisors. So we're right in the middle. We're in that sweet spot. So we're in a good place with my council.
That's good, yeah. Now, and so it sounds like you're doing a lot of good things as well to maintain your attendance and keeping members connected and interested.
Yes.
Finally, I'm going to bring you a new friend, a friend of ours, shall we say. His name is Anthony McCool. He's a Freemason. He has his own podcast called Cool Life, the Cool Life Podcast. And, you know, he was a great guy. He drives around a lot. Takes a lot of trips in his RV, but I managed to flag him down. I had a wide-ranging conversation with him and a lot of fellowship there. And it's a very interesting and funny guy. And we're going to interview him here. I'm going to give you a clip, part of the interview I did with him where he talked about lodge attendance. Now, shifting gears here, let's talk about like
lodge attendance. Do you have the same problem in where you live about members missing their meetings or not attending, especially business meetings?
In Georgia, what I find, there is no difference between a regular communication and a business meeting.
Mm-hmm.
They're the same. They're interchangeable. They may have meetings twice a month, but you really can't tell the difference between one meeting and the other, except for one of them they read the financials report and the other one they don't. Outside of that, the meeting's the same. They're virtually identical. So I do find other jurisdictions are do have meetings, and I think there's a struggle nationwide with that. And I say that with coming from uh, in the last 4 years of being a full-time RVer, I've visited 37 jurisdictions and have sat in over 200 some odd lodges. So I've really gotten a chance to see what goes on, how the openings and closings are done, definitely some degree work, and I've gotten a chance to see that they're all dealing with the same problems, and they're trying to solve them in many different ways. Some of them are trying to reduce dues. Some of them are trying to bring you in the organization, and you don't have to memorize as much. And none of it seems to be working.
I think, but what do you think is leading to? Because I know, like where I am, some of it guys are in the iron workers unions, so they're away on jobs, or they're in the oil patch and they're away doing their 3 or 4 week loops up there.
Sure.
Do you think that's part of what people are just busier?
Yeah. I think that's part of it. There's so much available on this day and age that they're just not joiners. They're not face to face joiners. They tend to be people today tend to be more doing whatever it is online, and the attention span, because we live in such a fast society, the attention span is here, and it's just not. I think that's really part of it, and it's tough to find that and give them that interest in the history of masonry and what it can do for them. Uh, uh, you know, they say, well, I can always meet friends somewhere. What's the whole point of joining masonry? Well, they don't understand that and we tell them that it's about developing the person, but it's hard to show that. It's hard to say, see, this guy, he was in this part of his life, stage of his life, and because he's developed through masonry, just look at him now. It's tough to show that, because it's kind of the inner person is what we're developing, not necessarily the outward person.
So let's retrace our steps, brothers and sisters. Right. I don't even know where to begin, but let's start with what Mr. Feaster said, that he found that combining weekly online meetings as well as their food and fellowship sessions and get-togethers really created a sense of anticipation within the brethren, right? And as a result, their business meetings were much better attended. I like that. And there is nothing like a barbecue or a spaghetti dinner, stuff like that, informal, get together, that really helps foster that sort of fellowship and anticipation. Because I love those really, especially those spontaneous meetings or gatherings that my lodge has. We have those spontaneous gatherings where, we just all of a sudden someone will get on the WhatsApp and say, let's all meet at the lodge or at this guy's house. And we just kind of, you know what I mean? It really promotes fellowship. And I do find sometimes after something like that, the next meeting has a few more members there. And of course, we have the stories from that spontaneous get-together to talk about when we get there. That's all I'm going to say about that. Mr. Kike believes that the issue of lodge attendance is part of a much larger society issue, where, people feel that they have the answers and in fellowship that they can get like online, like all of that can be obtained online, right? I mean, if we really need to get the message out there that there is no substitute for in-person attendance, there really isn't.
Mr. Bronner says that quorum within the Fraternal Order of Moai is 50% what the membership is for that chapter. That's quite interesting. I've never heard that before. It doesn't sound like his particular chapter has any issues with attendance, and it doesn't sound like they seem to have a great, like even the other chapters were having huge problems with attendance. They always seem to be able to at least meet quorum, right? And I wasn't it great to see him again? Okay, like it really was, and I promise you, you're going to see him again here real soon. But it's just wonderful. After 3 years, who would have thunk it type thing, right? Mr. Suplavita feels that, attendance will involve, any type, dealing with attendance will involve a multifaceted approach, right? I know during my conversation with him, if you refer back to that particular segment, he talked about like keeping meetings interesting, and I will agree with that. And I will get back to that in a few seconds here. But yeah, it is true. We do, the same dry type messaging every time you have a meeting. I mean, it's going to create problems. I will admit that. You keep repeating that same thing over and over again, right? It's hard to get different results. Mr. Tomasello believes that the message in his particular Knights of Columbus Lodge, that mix of the old guard and the youth getting together, combined with mentorship within the Brethren, it really helps keep his lodge. It really helps his lodge maintain good attendance. Then there was Mr. McCool. This was a fun conversation I had with him. I promise you, you're going to see the rest of that interview later. But he believes that some of the issues with lodge attendance have to do with much larger societal changes, right? And he points in some ways to people's inability to see lodge membership or their membership within the lodge as being very relevant, right? They can meet with people outside and so on, right? My take on that is it's not just about the business, it's about the fellowship you have afterwards. And I really feel this is the way I like to approach it when people come in that are interested, for instance, in smoking cigars. Prime example, you saw me smoke cigars. I will sit down and make sure I'll bring a cigar and I'll make sure they have a cigar, right? So they can, you can, fellowship over a cigar. On the other hand, for instance, a younger member who comes in that's, shall we say, into video gaming. We have members in our lodge who are quite involved in video gaming. I'll make sure I put that newer, younger member who loves gaming together with that individual so they can sit there, right, and talk about video games, and they can have that kind of conversation down in the lounge after the meeting's over, right? So that's my approach to it, right? I will say this, at my last lodge meeting, when it comes to the dryness of some of the meetings, at my last lodge meeting, we kept the atmosphere in the lodge lighthearted, very, very dynamic, right? And because I think this is the way people like it lately, right? And it was, like I said, it was the installation of officers for that night. We took about a 10-15 minute recess before we installed our officers, during the meeting. We went down, to the lodge. We had a 10-minute, drink, smoke, and joke session in the lounge prior to the installation. Reconvened and then finished the meeting. Got the installation done, and then finished the meeting. It was wonderful. The fellowship and the lightheartedness that came out of that. I just, what I mean. That to me is really an indicator of where we really need to go with lodge to make sure that the meetings are interesting, right? But remember something as well still, that we have, as members, we do have a duty to practice regular lodge attendance, right? To stay in touch with your lodge, right? Hebrews 10:25 reminds us that says that not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another. And that's part of what we're there for in that lodge, to exhort, admonish, and have that fellowship. Make sure our meetings are dynamic, and make sure we maintain that fellowship with our brothers. It's not just about you, remember. It's about your brethren in that lodge that really, in some cases, do need to see you there. Right? And I'll leave it at that. Before you go, I want to remind you that this podcast is available on both YouTube and Spreaker. Please share, like, and subscribe when viewing Points of Light Radio on YouTube. I also welcome your comments and input. You can see the link to my PayPal here in the details section of this segment. You can go there, hit on that link, and make a voluntary donation to Points of Light Radio. We will use that to move the podcast forward. You can see the link to my Facebook page at facebook.com/Points of Light Radio. You can see my Twitter handle is at PO Light Radio. My Bluesky handle is at polightradio.bsky.social. You can see the link to my Spotify channel, as well as my Points of Light Radio store. Brothers and sisters, let's not forget to fellowship with one another in our lodges. And until we meet again, just step into the light.